So I'm saying that I was involved with this school with my daughter as far back as 2001 when I was a teacher here. I can say that now my daughter's back at Summit. Academics at Summit have improved so much in that time. It's part of the reason I brought my dad back. And management style or not, some of that, that happened on Derek's watch. So.
Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I just want to be honest. I am having a hard time to start first year here. I'm struggling. I feel like there's a lot of pieces that aren't really making sense. I want to rest assured that has all the truth been put out on the table today. Is this the truth? Is there some stuff that's missing and or why we have to take a step back for more reason? I just feel like there's something missing that I need to address that.
Yeah, so for those of you that didn't hear, she's just wondering if this really is it. Is this all of it? Is this really the truth? Are we holding anything back? I can look all of you in the eye and say, this is everything that I know, that I've ever known. There is no scandal. It's really, if you go like with Dr. Cortez, it's maybe just management style. When you go to and some communication, filtering down and such like that. When it comes to the board, it's really just not being transparent, not having meetings where people felt like they were included, not having a say, and just not being really in touch with some of the inner workings. But this is it. There is nothing else. And so, but we had years of financial crisis, and then the board wasn't operating properly, and so accumulation of that, those two things are really is what got us here tonight.
I just want to comment on that real quick, because I think that's the great question. That's the question that's on everyone's mind. Like, is this the real story? Is that really going on? And one of the things I've been observing is a lot of the questions that were raised by various parents and such were very good questions, legitimate and such. If there was a theme, and this doesn't explain it all and such, but there was a theme, there were a series of unhealed wounds and unresolved conflict. And you all know, whether you're married or in friendships or your church and such, when there is an unhealed wound or unresolved conflict, it amplifies the pain. And that, so if you got a sore knee and someone touches the knee, it cripples you. It's very, very hard. And so just and listening to the many stories, if there's a theme in that, and if there's a thing that I wish I would counsel all of us on, and whoever's in leadership on, is to be ruthless about seeking out if there's wounds, if you've offended somebody, if you've hurt somebody, if there has been mismanagement, and to make sure that it's fully resolved. Because that doesn't explain the whole thing, but that is a significant part of what has happened in this, which can make it seem like, well, what is all that? And then to really go through case by case, that's where it's like unwinding a fishing line. It gets impossible. It gets very complicated and such. So there really isn't scandal in this. It's not hidden stuff. But if there is a theme that I think helps explain a lot of this, is that it does have to do with unhealed wounds and unresolved conflict that needed to be wrestled to the ground far more quickly than it was. And then what happens over time is it erupts and it comes out and people get hurt. So that is very much a theme that I've seen.
Well, Derek resigned. We really haven't had the opportunity, nor at this point is there a reason to really do that. What we are doing is taking that information about Derek, and we're using that as a board to look at communication systems, look at chain of command, look at the organization, such like that, so that we can address some of the issues that cause that problem. So. He's aware. We did kind of tell him what some of the main complaints were, but we didn't get to the point where we were going to ask him to respond and then deal with him as a board and determine if any course of action we're going to take. So.
Give us an idea of how many parent closes involve these grievances
There was 12 families that came that night. Yeah, because we limited it. So I would say maybe 20.
All the people that came that night, did they have kids at Summit or work for Summit? I mean, was it Summit?
Yes, they all had children in school.
They all did?
Yes. Oh, former employee, that's right. There was one that didn't. She was a former employee.
If I knew if it was there, how many more letters of concern from families and parents also got
I had received no, and I don't think the board had received any letters prior to that. I've gotten a bunch of emails since then. No hard letters, but yeah, it was about 25 families, I think, originally, but I have gotten some emails. Those emails pretty much mirrored the same complaints that we got during the meeting.
Does it bother you at all, though, that these families came forward, Derek resigned? I think the thing that's not setting well with me is, I love Derek Cortez. I think he was a great leader. I think we've got board members up here saying, we're healthier than we've ever been. Guess what? Our leader just walked out the door. So my problem with that is, the people that were for Derek, we wanted to follow the rules, do as you asked us, not show up at the meeting, not do anything to support him. I think why my heart hurts is because Derek didn't feel that support. He just didn't, because he didn't get the opportunity. And I just want to go on the record with that and say that I love the Cortez family, huge blessing to Summit, and they're going to be missed.
As do we, and the board holds Derek in high regards. You know, one of the things that I've been accused of is being friends with him, and so I don't think that's a sin. But we also, there was nothing that we heard that we considered to be a terminable offense or anything that was egregious or scandalous. And so Derek is very aware of the support. The vast, overwhelming majority of the parents, staff do and did support Derek Cortez.
very important there. I'm manager of a pretty large organization. And if you were bringing a group of people together, I'm sure 8 to 10% of those people will say bad things about me. But there would probably be some stuff. Obviously. I think that's very valuable point.
No.
Connected.
Right, extremely valuable, which is why immediately after that meeting, when phone calls started coming in, we're setting up that meeting. I mean, literally, and Derek said no. He said, I don't want to do that. So is it Derek's request that we not do that? That was
Is there
actually.
any alternative offered by the board to support him? Meaning, what did you do? I mean, I'm
He said, let's set up a meeting so that we can we've got so many people in this hand that love you and want to talk about how great you are and all these things. So whenever we were trying to facilitate that, that's when Derek shut that down.
I think in hindsight, not say this were to happen again, but if that did happen, in that situation, could you say, here's the grievances that are coming forth, they're going to be discussed at board meeting. We encourage anybody who wants to discuss those topics to come. Because I didn't know exactly what it was.
Sure. What had happened? Let me just talk a little bit about the communication. And so, when we got the request for the meeting, I guess we didn't realize the angst and the anger and some of the severity of some of the problems. And then, as we started to say, okay, we'll have a meeting, what immediately happened is this hideaway hit the school. Okay. And it made a lot of people mad, and we realized that if we didn't kind of back up a little bit and rein that in, it was really going to be a lot of folks that had no idea what was going on were going to show up, and there might be some things said that everyone didn't need to hear, so we wanted just to try to rein that back in. There was, I think, a lot of phone calls being made, recruiting being done. I don't know, what all was going on there. There was an email sent out on behalf of the board that the board didn't send out. And so there was a lot of confusion. And it tells you about the open wounds and the hurt and some of the stuff that was going on. And to me, a lot of that was very unhealthy. But again, just a symptom of, hey, this thing's broke. And so, in the future, one of the things I've been contemplating, I have to talk to the board about this, is that the board scheduled twice a year an open meeting where we're like a panel and everyone can come and we can tell you about what the plan is for the year, what our vision is, what our short-term, long-term plan is, and such like that. One of the things in our strategic plan is brown bag lunches. I don't know if those of you all have seen that, but there's something in there where board members come and, you know, have lunch on campus and stuff like that. And so, you know, we're open to that, but I really just want to tell you from my heart, we do and we did support Derek, and we were prepared to support Derek. We said we weren't jumping on one bandwagon or the other. We were just trying to seek truth and figure out, okay, how do we get to this point? You know, what was Derek's part in it? What was the board's part in it? Are these valid complaints and such like that? So, the board, I can tell you this day, we're very sad at Derek's leaving. You know, it's his decision. One of the things that struck me when Derek came and talked to us is that he had been thinking about this for over a year. So,
Greg, actually, got to put it. I think everybody has to understand. You have to put all this in context. He has stewarded the Karen Piper financial issues, and then he actually had after that financial crisis, and then he actually had with the Andrew campus we had to deal with in terms of whether or not we're going to shut it down or not. We ultimately ended up doing that, and then he ended up having to spend 2 years prior to the shutdown here. Okay, no longer really spending any time over in Cedar Park. So now we can actually look at all the things that have added on to this, and the management issues that have compounded themselves, and the things that we've had to string together over the course of time to get the board to work. He's burned out, plain and simple. That's all there is to it. There's no mystery that goes on with any of this. He's just burned out. I know Derek pretty well. And we got all the way through this point. I mean, he stewarded this school through the rockiest of times. Okay? And there's only so much one person is going to be able to take. And he realizes exactly what is best for the school. What has always been best for the school. The school is bigger than one person, and always will be bigger than one person. Was I disappointed with what he gave me a call personally and said, this is what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm about to play. And I'm trying to figure out, all right, well, this is interesting. Does everybody else know? And so he was going out and saying this is exactly why he was wanting to step down. So you have to keep that all in the context as to what it is. Now, someone who's a huge supporter of Derek Cortez, that's me. I know, with all his faults and with all imperfect people do, he is hugely supportive of this school and always has been and will continue to be. No, you know, even without being in some Christian together. So there's really nothing else to really look at that. There was no mystery as to why he got sent down. I know, you know, I've known Greg for a while here, so you know, actually been managed under Greg, and
Probably not one of the 8
you know Greg a while, so you
So
know,
you would tell you.
I can't. I'll let know. But anyways, just like Greg was saying, there's always going to be that 8 or 10%, and you don't necessarily want to go ahead and manage that area. You can't be necessarily always going down. There's going to be disgruntled people. Are you always going to please everybody? There's not a chance. I mean, I actually run a couple teams at Dell. There's no way I please everybody. It's just not going to happen. So, Susan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was at that meeting, and as PTA president, I stood to represent parents this year. And this conversation of there must be more to it, what really happened there.
For those of you who want to know genuinely, and for those of you who work here and have somehow figured out who was at that meeting without a discussion with myself or those other people, have defriended us on Facebook, have said, no, I wouldn't have been a part of that witch hunt, coming from people who work here. I'm sorry, but you call a spade. That is not healthy. What happened at that meeting that night was a lot of things were brought to light in a loving spirit, not by, as I also heard, a bunch of people with petty complaints. I would look at every single